minutes just to let everyone join the webinar, and we'll get started. Okay, looks like we have almost everyone in the room. I'm going to go ahead and kick this off. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to What's Brewing in Storage Innovation. I'm Victor Simon, Senior Solutions Architect here at NextNet, and myself and a couple other coworkers from HPE will be joining me here. Matt, if we could go to the next slide, please. Next slide. Again, I'm Vic Simon. I'm with NextNet. NextNet, we are one of the premier VARs here in the Philadelphia metro area. We cover actually global accounts, and we help customers basically with a connected experience, workplace modernization, applied intelligence, and cloud and hybrid IT. We are one of HPE's premier partners, not only in this area, but also from a national perspective. Next slide, please. So the group I work in is the infrastructure group. We cover cloud, data center, networking, cybersecurity, workplace. We also cover robotic process automation and workflow process of your data center. Next. Creating the modern infrastructure, that's my bread and butter. Again, this is sort of how all the pieces of what we offer, we bring to the table for our clients in terms of strategy, assessments, design, implementation, and management. So as you can see, security, automation, disaster recovery, cloud, storage servers, and networking, that's really our bread and butter. We will be going over the advances in storage today. So if we could go to the next slide, please. Again, Vic Simon, Senior Solutions Architect here at NextNet. Mike Monahan, Solutions Architect from HPE, and Matt McDougall, Technical Architect from HPE, will be helping me in this presentation. Next. Turn it over to you guys.
Thanks, Vic. I just wanted to take a quick minute and welcome everyone to today's presentation, and thank you for joining us. We're going to go through just some of the intelligent storage platforms that HPE has to offer today. And I think today what we're seeing is a lot of organizations are looking on how can they accelerate what's next. And we realize data is probably one of your most valuable assets. And what we see is if companies aren't leveraging their data, people are being disrupted, right? So people are using data as disruption out there in the market today. So we're seeing IT needs to really shift from the left side of managing storage and infrastructure and really unlock the opportunity of managing their data. And how do they stream access to their data to their developers or to their analysts or to their innovators? And how can we create data or create value from this data is important. But also we need to also protect and safeguard the data and predict and prevent disruptions to that data. And probably one of the most important parts is how are we accelerating this data to free access to the cloud? And I think like most organizations, most people look at this accelerating transformation and how do they resolve the data management, and how is it central to every transformation question that most companies are asking themselves today, and what's really preventing companies from becoming data driven. So if we look at some of the bottlenecks or challenges, that's where we see how do we unleash the power of data. Next slide. So what we see is, and I think we can all agree that every organization wants to unlock the power of data as we've been talking about and transform into digital transformation. Even over the last 18 months, polling a lot of our customers, over 75% of our customers still say digital transformation is one of their top priorities this year. But what we see is there's a lot of fragmentation in data management tools, in manual processes, in infrastructure, in silos, and then obviously spanning from stuff from edge to cloud. And how do these different obstacles get in the way? So customers across multiple industries are struggling with the complexity of managing this data and infrastructure. And it's not easy, right? Because there are a lot of roadblocks in innovation and agility, but also there's a lot of risks that are out there. So what we're seeing is it's harder for data transformation to happen because data continues to grow, apps continue to evolve, and infrastructure continues to spread. So HPE's taken initiative to become a edge to cloud company as a service. Next. So HPE understands that, as we've been talking about, data does underpin everything and is at the heart of your applications. And it's obviously that you need to develop an intelligent data strategy. And this potential will help transform your business. Through this presentation, we'll talk about different pieces of what constitutes this intelligent storage. And Matt will talk later about some of the AI intelligence that we built into our platforms to help with this continualization of intelligence. But the storage platforms help our customers with workload optimizations. And we really moved away from hardware, and we're looking at workloads on specific applications. So whether it's mission critical, business critical, general purpose, we realize that the cloud kind of unlocked this new level of agility, and everyone expects an as a service experience going forward. And we're going to help deliver on that with this cloud data services to help embrace a hybrid cloud and data mobility use cases that you'll see. Next. So as we discussed previously, right, one of the biggest challenges in traditional IT today is the complexity and silos. And that's what's challenging our customers to be able to deliver resources to their lines of business. So what we've seen is the objective is to deliver your services as an application owner as quickly as possible, and to have to think, not worry about managing the silo of hardware. And we see most of our customers started adopting a cloud-first approach. And it worked for some applications, but then they realized that they really needed a cloud anywhere approach. In order to meet the growing demands of their business from edge to cloud, customers are looking for a more simplified experience through the entire lifecycle process. So what you'll see is we've kind of shifted from this cloud-first approach to a cloud everywhere approach. Next. Now, we've spoken a lot about infrastructure. We've spoken a lot about management challenges and complexities. Let's take our first look into what really starts developing this intelligent data platform and what we've built upon to help produce this anywhere approach with our data services cloud console. So this SaaS-based console helps customers transform faster with cloud and unified data operations as a service. It brings that cloud-like experience to wherever data lives with a cloud-native architecture. It helps to abstract and orchestrate infrastructure, create data workflows, as you'll see with unified APIs, and it really starts to help transform the data complexity operations and to help simplify that approach across edge to cloud. Next. Yep. So the data services cloud console was designed to simplify our data operations with a single destination. And you'll see here the set of cloud and infrastructure services that we're going to provide are really unique in the data services cloud console. So as we've coined, the DSCC is architected as a framework of a bunch of microservices and workflows that will enable for rapid development, deployment, scaling of new services, provide for a consistent user experience, and it also provides the foundation for potential services in the future to seamlessly be available to our customers as they become available on the interface, so we can manage our infrastructure and data a lot easier. So if we look at some of the cloud infrastructure services, you can see up top, we help automate the infrastructure management at scale, bring in that cloud operations agility that we've been talking about across the life cycle, and help deploy and upgrade intelligence to your optimization. Now, also from the services side, you'll see we help to collapse some of the data silos and eliminate some of the complexity of traditional data management operations we were talking about earlier across the silo of edge to cloud, and help to unify the experience of data management and data consumption across accessing it, protecting it, obviously searching on it, and then mobilizing it, right? So if we're looking at kind of what the data services will bring together, the policies and automation, this will help simplify and provide efficiencies from end-to-end workflows and help orchestrate the edge to cloud. Next. So here's a look at what we talked about earlier. We've moved away from just the platforms themselves and kind of look at workloads in particular. So what you'll see is with the lineup of products that we have here from a storage perspective, we've obviously categorized these in specific workloads to help have the proper class of products. So the one thing you'll see is the Electra platform is our new offering out there. That data services cloud console is required with the Electra 9000 and 6000, and these will be available on the other platforms, our Primera and Nimble platforms, shortly in the near future. So in the next couple slides, we're going to help break down some of these mission critical and business critical platforms and see how they fit into your environment and where they really fit well. Next. So the Electra 9000 was designed specifically for mission critical workloads. And the design center of this product really starts with the optimization. And you can see in the top right, 100% availability guaranteed. There's no special requirements. There's no pre-requirements you need. We have 100% guarantee on this product. And this was really designed for unconstrained scalability. So if we look at some of the massive parallelization that we bring, the scalability is unique, right? It's a multi-node, all active architecture, which I would say is probably the best in the industry today. It's got building capabilities with zero RPO, RTO type requirements. It includes an active scenario as well as an active failover site scenarios. It's an all NVMe design, so we're looking at front end and back end, but we continue to carry on the legacies of what 3PAR and Primera brought to the table. And the nice part of this, in this little 4U footprint, we've been able to push over 2 million IOPS. So the performance at scale is incredible. And you can see on here with SAP HANA, we're able to certify over 96 SAP nodes in just this little 4U footprint. So what you'll see is from workloads across the spectrum, any of your mission critical workloads, large databases, containerization, virtualization farms, anything at scale really fits well into this platform. Next.
So yeah, Mike, sort of tailing onto that, I think the HPE Primera, which was the next evolution of the HPE 3PAR platform, really, took it to the next level in terms of the hardware architecture. This is still meant for that tier 0, tier 1 workload for your enterprise and mission critical workloads. The big difference on the Primera from a 3PAR perspective is the architecture in terms of the ASIC and how the CPUs and memory are used. So they decoupled the hardwiring between the ASICs and the CPUs, so you get much better bandwidth and overall utilization from a controller perspective. What this allowed them to do with the introduction of Infosight as well is provide the 100% availability uptime guarantee. So basically, if this takes the HPE 3PAR 20Ks, 9Ks, and it's the next evolution of the hardware platform to allow for that growth. So this is really the bridge between the 3PAR and the Primera. Next.
Yeah. So we also introduced the Electra 6000, right? This is ideal for business workloads with strict XLAs around performance and availability. It's built on an ultra efficient architecture, right? So we really took the Nimble platform and extended what Nimble brought to the table. And as Vic said, like with Primera, the Electra 9000 is an all NVMe backend. The Electra 6000 is an all NVMe front end and back end as well. So it's a complement to the Nimble platform today, right? So it still continues to build on the industry leading data efficiencies that Nimble had. There's, the simplicity of configurations. There's not a ton of knobs to turn. Things like always on data services, app-aware intelligence, eliminating performance and efficiency trade-offs are all still built into this product. It has a resilient storage intelligence, no single points of failure, 6 nines of availability guaranteed. And we've continued to deliver on the flexibility and scale with this platform, just like we have in Nimble's. Next.
Speaking of Nimble, Nimble product is still available. So we basically still have 2 flavors of the Nimble: the adaptive flash, which is the hybrid, which basically leverages SSD as a read tier cache, and gets the cost down of the unit by leveraging spinning disk on the back end. And then there's the all flash flavor that is still available as well. So if you take a look at the Nimble 5th generation and the Electra 600, you basically have hybrid, all flash, and all NVMe. So same thing with the Primera. You have 3-par, Primera, and then Electra. So basically in that order of increasing performance and technology, if you will. So this is, again, what Mike said: 6 nines of availability, ultra efficient, easy to manage, easy to configure, easy to scale, meant for your business critical workloads. Next.
Now, the nice part of this is, and the kind of tie it all together, if you're familiar with the HPE story around our mission and business critical platforms, we've continued to support those through a process called Timeless. So the program for Timeless allows for no forklift upgrades. So we're basically doing in place data upgrades, providing for flat support pricing. It still provides on the 6 nines of availability for the Nimble and Electra platforms that we talked about. And then obviously on the Electra 9000 and Primeras with 100% availability guarantee. So we're continuing to carry those legacy capabilities and services forward into our newer platforms. If you're familiar with our Store More guarantee, where we give 4-to-1 universal guarantee on data, that also continues into the Electra platform. And then there's a 30-day trial. So, right, if customers want to, at a risk-free, can stand up these platforms in their environment to try these for 30 days. Now, in a little bit later in the presentation, we'll also talk about some of the AI-driven intelligence that I talked about. So Matt's going to go into some details around, how these recommendations for improvements on performance, drive higher availability, how to optimize resources, provide for better planning. You'll see how that all fits in when we get into the Infosight piece that Matt's going to do shortly. Next. Okay. So what we've also seen is some of the challenges we face with HCI have given HPE an idea, right? We're looking at how can hyper-converged experience a software-defined infrastructure and automation across the entire stack, but without limitations or trade-offs, right? So we're really looking at the enterprise edge, things like retail locations and hospitals and clinics, financial services, manufacturing plants. We've looked at this new strategy and how can the edge be addressed without posing a lot of unique challenges. And we know with SimpliVity, a product that we've had for about 5 years now, we've kind of taken the SimpliVity platform and increased it. So now we look at SimpliVity more as an intelligent HCI platform. And as I said, Matt will go into more details around the intelligence piece when we get into Infosight shortly. But we've really evolved away from just being the enterprise class platform that it was before, with high performance, great data protection and resiliency in 2 nodes, and really have provided this AI intelligence for more self-optimizing, self-healing, and self-managing. Sorry about that, forgot the word I was looking for self-managing of the platform. So really, this is a great edge platform, and it's a zero-touch type scenario because there's no staff really required for this, and it's really easy, simple to manage and pull back into from your remote sites. Next slide. Let's really focus on the end-to-end customer experience, right? HCI really helps simplify, if we look at this deployment, scale, managing, support, upgrading. There's a lot of great things you can say about HCI, right? And Simplicity really helped collapse the stack with a unique all-in-one system, right? We're the first ones to bring everything into the stack, including backups and recovery, and eliminating separate software, separate appliances. We're able to do the entire stack and use this remote backup capabilities to really recover a terabyte type VM in less than a minute. But what we've seen is we've given our customers more of a global unified management, right? The GUI is managed through VMware, so it's easy. Anyone familiar with VMware can really pick up Simplicity really quickly. And if you look at the non-disruptive scale, we make it really easy to add in and balance and rebalance with no disruption to the end users. So what we're looking at is some of the new stuff we added, one-click upgrades. Not only does it upgrade the hardware, but it also upgrades the hypervisor as well as the firmware and the OS. So a one-click upgrade button allows us to upgrade the entire node and then roll from node to node. So eliminating any hiccups, eliminating incompatibilities between software and firmware. And then, like I said, on the global intelligence piece, Matt's going to go into some greater details on how we really provide for supported automation stuff, as well as case automation and predictive analytics. Next. So really, HP saw that there were some shortcomings or some challenges to the HCI platform in general. And, we really saw that software-defined infrastructure and automation across the entire stack was great, but there was some limitations or some trade-offs. So if you followed, about 2 years ago, we introduced, or if you want to call, created a new category called disaggregated HCI. So DHCI is a new category that HP has delivered on to kind of increase the experience of your HCI without those trade-offs. So this new platform kind of integrates your hyperconverged control, so the stuff we're familiar with vCenter and virtualization, into the world's best-selling servers. So we took our ProLiant platform, which is self-managing and self-healing, and then added in our Nimble Electra to create this DHCI. And it provides, I feel, for a unique management experience with flexibility and support, and especially for unpredictable workloads. And it provides a business class critical app that we talked about when we looked at the Nimble and Electra platforms. So really, the resiliency of this with the 6 nines and low latency of this provides for a really solid growth platform. The intelligence, as you'll see later, for the full stack with virtualization through our Infosight provides for additional pieces. And then the efficiency of scale. As you can see in the picture over here, there's independent scale for compute and storage non-disruptively, but it also allows us to scale out to a public cloud platform. So in turn, the architecture provides for no wasted resources, no over provisioning. It helps for consolidation of mixed workloads, and really just helps provide for better application performance. Next slide. If we look at some of the principles that went into the building of DHCI, and we really extended the hyperconverged experience across the stack, the entire, the full stack, through the whole entire lifecycle management. And we've taken really a stance on how do we help simplify the deployment, management, scale, and support. So if we kind of look at some of the pieces here, and I've deployed this myself, so I know it's pretty true, right? The Nimble DHCI is, like I said, software. It's a vCenter plugin. There's a Nimble Storage deployment that you deploy, which is automated. It's self-discovering, so it provides for an easy cluster setup. It will manually go detect the servers, and then within 5 clicks, probably about 15 minutes, you can stand up the entire environment. The other great part is it's simple to manage, right? If you are familiar with vCenter console, your VM-centric data services and resource management stuff are all still there. So you don't need any separate elements, any separate appliances to manage this. It's all managed, again, through the vCenter plugin. The scale I think we've seen is, right, new storage and services are auto-discovered, get added to the cluster easily. There's non-disruptive, it's transparent to your applications. You can easily scale your storage or your compute without any disruptions. As Matt will touch on, again, the simple support with predictive full stack analytics and support for automation workloads will be talked about a little greater in details with Infosight, but this also allows for an increase right into our L3 support, right? So you don't go to a level 1 support engineer. Since the automation piece, as Matt talks about Infosight, you'll see how we can skip over that L1, L2 and get you directly into a level 3 type person who can help answer or fix your problems. And some of the last couple of pieces of simplifying for cloud or multi-cloud environments, integration with our cloud volumes platform provides for a data portability, right? So if you're looking to get data off-prem and move to a public cloud, this gives you that opportunity to move the data off-site while providing a cloud adjacent capability to your platform. Next.
All right, so in continuation of our data discussion, Mike touched on it earlier, HPE's Infosight, for those of you who don't know, it is our cloud-based machine learning and fault detection analytics engine. Now, it is implemented across our entire HPE portfolio, and over a decade of data has been collected so far. So as we all know, data is the new gold, data is gravity. So we want to be able to unleash that power of data for all of our customers. Now, I like to use this slide that shows this iceberg as a differentiator between us and our competitors. Our competitors will show these advanced visualizations and some dashboards, but we're really giving the power beyond that, everything you see below that line, below that surface level of the iceberg. We are observing what's going on in your environment through the thousands of data points and sensors built into the actual HPE technology. Step 2 is HPE's Infosight is going to start learning from all of those observations, and then it's going to start predicting and then recommending actions to take on all of that data that it's been collected. And then finally, part of this, as Mike touched earlier, the self-managing, self-healing, self-optimizing piece of Infosight, it's going to actually start acting all of those recommendations and fixing any issues for you. So our customers with Infosight have reported that 86% of their time they're spending less on managing storage issues because of the automation and the auto open and close with all of these recommendations. They are also having 79% lower storage operational expenses because they're not wasting time managing all of those issues. And then finally, 86% of issues are automatically opened and solved without them ever even having to worry about them. So that's that skipping from level 1 to 2 support and going straight to a level 3 support engineer. Now, HPE's Infosight has just announced a new addition to it, and that is our Applications Insight. Now, we'll rapidly be able to extend the Infosight analytics to the application layer, which will give us things like auto detection of anomalous behaviors. Say, for example, high latency. We'll be able to dive deeper into all of that and give you more info into all of your data. Now, some of the customer challenges that we've been seeing with the adoption of a hybrid cloud model. First one will be eliminating the complexity of a hybrid cloud. So cloud operations are very difficult, and customers want to be able to help eliminate that complexity. Next is they want to have visibility into all of their their data. They want to be able to connect their spend to their outcomes. There is a knowledge gap, so addressing that skills gap is very important. Technical resources are spread pretty thinly, so they want to be able to make sure that they're able to manage all of their infrastructure. And then finally, a big thing in our world today is governance and compliance. So security is key nowadays, and that should be of utmost importance. Now, HPE is addressing all of these challenges through HPE GreenLake, our cloud services. So GreenLake is our pay-per-use consumption model. First, we're delivering a single common hybrid cloud platform under GreenLake Central, which is our single self-service portal and operations console. You'll be able to gain cost and compliance insights into all of your GreenLake environments, and you'll be able to rapidly deploy GreenLake services. 2, we've got our GreenLake management services, which will help manage and monitor all of those GreenLake environments. And then finally, we're bringing a, wherever in the stack that you want to consume a resource, we are providing flexibility into all of that through our GreenLake services. And that wraps it up. Are there any questions? There were a couple in the chat. Have we addressed those yet?
I believe we have, Matt.
Yes.
Are there any other questions out there?
Tell you what, if there are other questions, feel free to drop them into the Q&A section. Matt, Mike, and myself will be on for the remainder of this webinar during the beer tasting. So if something pops into mind, feel free to just drop it in there, and one of us will get back to you. Or you can always email us. We can do it that way as well. So Matt, if you could go just to the next slide, please. So for everyone on this webinar, the one thing that we're looking to do or offer to you guys as a sort of a thank you for sitting through our presentation is HPE and the NextNet will be more than happy to come out and perform an HPE Assessment Foundry and SAF assessment of your storage environment. This will provide insight as to what you got going on there and how it might look being consolidated into one of these storage solutions that we've discussed. So just feel free to reach out to NextNet and we will be more than happy to get that spun up for you. Next. Now for the time you've all been waiting for. Turn it over to Christy Neely, who's going to take you on a journey through a beer tasting adventure. Christine?
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. My name is Christine Healy. I'm the founder of Crafted Company. We are a beer events company, and I'm excited to enjoy a couple beers with you all. So we are going to start off with our Oktoberfest beer because I know that NextNet and HPE wanted to bring a little Oktoberfest celebration to each of you. So let's go ahead and we'll crack that beer open and chat a little bit about it. My first little suggestion is we just have a half hour that we're talking about these beers, and 4 16-ounce cans in a half hour is a recipe for disaster. So my suggestion is to do a small pour of each one, taste a little bit as we're going along, and then you can always go back and finish your favorites later. Or feel free to open one and sip on that as we're discussing. Feel free to drop any questions you have about the beers into the chat section, and I will try to address those. So yeah, we're starting off with an Oktoberfest beer. I always like to start off our tastings with a lager because there are 2 distinct styles of beer that are kind of the umbrella styles for all others, lagers and ales. Oktoberfest beers, Marzens and Fest beers fall into that lager category. So as we do a little beer examination here, this is a nice straw gold, bright straw color. In terms of the flavor and aroma you're going to be getting from this beer, it's going to be a little more malt forward, so bread or doughy or cracker sorts of flavors, and a very crisp, clean finish on this beer here. Interesting enough, this Paulaner Oktoberfest beer, this is straight from Munich, Germany. To be a true Oktoberfest beer, this is one of the official Oktoberfest beers, has to be made in Munich. But interesting enough, Oktoberfest is not actually a style of beer, technically. I mentioned it, it's either Marzen or Fest beer. So Marzens are a little bit richer, maybe a little bit more caramel in color, and the Fest beers are a little bit lighter, a little bit less intense, and not quite as rich. So that makes perfect sense for Oktoberfest. Then you can enjoy a couple more of these Fest beers the Marzens might be a little too rich to drink quite as many pints or steins as Oktoberfest visitors are typically consuming. Oktoberfest started originally in 1810, just to give you a little bit of history on it. It was the Bavarian royal wedding at the time. And the celebration was so much fun. There was so much drinking and eating and horse races that they decided to then do it again the next year. And it became an annual celebration. Slowly they phased out the horse races, focused more on the beer, and it became one of the biggest beer festivals in the world. Typically, there are 6 million visitors that are descending upon Munich for Oktoberfest, and they are consuming 6 million liters of beer, so quite a bit of beer. And of course, unfortunately, the past couple of years, this year, Oktoberfest has been canceled, so that's why I'm so excited we're able to do a mini version of the celebration here. One thing I will note, and this is maybe not what you would think, but Oktoberfest actually is predominantly in the end of September and just runs into the beginning of October. But we're going to keep celebrating all October long with these great beers. A lot of small local breweries are now doing seasonal Oktoberfest beers, having their own Oktoberfest celebrations. So there's plenty of opportunities to even try out local breweries versions of these beers. Of course, as I mentioned, as we're going through, please feel free to drop any questions, but I'll keep chatting about these beers as we go along here. So as I mentioned earlier, the two different main beer styles are lagers and ales. The difference between those two are the types of yeast that's used to brew the beers. So lagers prefer a cooler temperature and ferment more slowly, whereas ale yeast prefers a warmer temperature and ferments more quickly. So for a small craft brewery, you may think, oh, lager beers, they must be so simple. They seem maybe a simpler flavor profile. They must be simpler to brew. That's in fact not the case. A lot of brewers I've talked to have said, these are some of the more challenging styles to brew. There's really not much to hide behind, so you really have to be on your A game for that. Also, too, lagers, as I mentioned, they ferment more slowly, so it does take longer to produce lager beers. Any questions up to this point? The other thing that I wanted to share with you all is a technique for the perfect beer pour. If you leave with one little piece of knowledge from our tasting today, it should be how to do the perfect beer pour. So to start off, you want to hold your beer at a 45-degree angle, and you want to start by pouring your beer down the side of the glass. And when you get to about 2/3 full, turn it upright and finish off your pour there. Not bad. Try not to spill it all over my laptop here. So with that, you want to get some of these bubbles up at the top, the head on the beer, because that's going to help you have a fuller experience of the flavor and aroma from the beer. But of course, you don't want an entire glass of foam. So that's kind of the best of both worlds. A couple of reasons you might want to pour your beer into a glass versus drinking it straight from the can. Of course, in a situation like this, where we're doing a full sort of sensory experience and trying to look at the look, the smell, the taste of the beer, easier to do that from a glass. You can get your nose in there, kind of like a wine tasting where you're used to swirling your wine, sticking your nose in the glass, etc. You can really do the same thing with a beer tasting, again, to get the full sensory experience. One thing that's very important, and this may seem fairly obvious, but is worth noting, is that your beer needs to be consumed from a beer clean glass. So that's a standard of cleanliness for your glass, that your beer is not going to take on any off flavors from any maybe detergents that are left behind in the glass from dishwashing, or any little specks of anything that are left behind. The ways that you can check to make sure that your glass is beer clean: One, by taking a look at it, making sure you don't see anything visible, but if you start to see lots of little bubbles clinging to the side of your glass, that's maybe a sign that there is a little detergent or something left behind, and that can cause off flavors, so you want to make sure that you're drinking out of a beer clean glass. I hope you all are enjoying this Oktoberfest beer. But yeah, let's open up our next one. We have quite a few beers to get through and chat about here. So now we're going to move into our Evil Genius beers here. So we're going to start off with There's No Crying in Baseball, which is the Hazy Mango IPA. I'm hoping that there are a few IPA lovers out in our watching our tasting or participating in our tasting today. I know that generally people are always excited about the IPAs that we're going to be tasting. But quick little info about Evil Genius. So Evil Genius was founded in 2011 by Luke Bowen and Trevor Hayward. And they have a really fun take. It even says it on their cans here. Very silly names for very serious beers, but they have a lot of fun sort of experimenting with the beer styles that they're brewing, looking at the trends that are happening in beer, and then experimenting on their own, but then also, of course, with the naming of their beers as well. And the Evil Genius name sort of comes off of the play of brewing beer being a little bit of a science experiment. There is a lot of science behind it. And they also call their tap room the lab. So they're kind of holding that theme across their brand there. But we're starting off with the Hazy Mango IPA. So back to our beer examination here. First thing you probably notice is this beer is not quite as clear as our Oktoberfest there, hence the hazy name. This one, we are on to, let's see here, 6% ABV. So still pretty reasonable in the scheme of things. That's always one thing that I suggest, is that you always check out the ABV on your beer, or the alcohol by volume. There's such a wide range in craft beer, and it doesn't have very much to do with how drinkable a beer is. Something could go down very smoothly, but be an 8 or 9+% beer. So always take a look at that. But yes, this one, a little bit of haze to it. Nothing too crazy in terms of the haziness, but the difference you'll see here when you go for a little sniff of the beer and then a sip, you're going to be getting a lot more hop forward flavors here. So that's elements like tropical fruits or floral notes, or maybe some piney notes, things like that. Those would all be more hop forward flavors versus our more malt forward flavors, the bread, cracker, toast sort of flavors we were talking about before. So cheers. Hopefully you are enjoying this one as well. And of course, if you have any questions about our Hazy Mango IPA, feel free to drop that in the chat. One thing I wanted to mention, since it says right on the description there, it's a Hazy Mango IPA. So oftentimes with your IPAs, you're getting, as I was mentioning, the citrus flavors, so maybe like lemon or grapefruit. You might be getting some pininess. Oftentimes, though, those beers are not actually adding grapefruit or lemon or anything like that, or orange maybe, into the brewing process. Those are all flavor profiles that are coming from the hops. But this one, this beer is actually infused with a natural hop flavor. So that's kind of different from many other IPAs, that those fruity flavors are actually coming from the hops that are used to brew the beer. I'm seeing in the comments here, beautiful color. Somebody's enjoying this beer. Yeah, absolutely. It's a nice sort of looks like a glass of grapefruit juice a little bit, has that haze to it, similar color as well. So while we're on our IPAs, wanted to talk a little bit about the history of IPAs. So IPAs, or pale ales, were originally brewed in England and exported to India, hence the name India Pale Ale. They went out of popularity due to alcohol taxes, but had this huge resurgence with the modern craft beer revolution that has happened. I'm sure you all know, and by example, we have 2 IPAs in our tasting today. If you go into a brewery, if you go into a beer bar, you're going to see a wide variety of IPAs on the menu. So if you're an IPA lover, it's a great time to be a beer drinker. And also, even more so, these hazy IPAs are having so much popularity right now. We'll get into a more sort of classic American IPA style next. So we'll talk more about that. One question that I always present to our groups, and we'll see if maybe people can drop the answers in the chat section here. We'll give it a second. But there are 4 main ingredients in beer. If you know one of them, just drop one of the ingredients in the chat section here. We'll see if we can. Oh, one person got it all at once. So yeah, absolutely. Water, yeast, hops, and grains. I don't know that I've ever had, that was record time for that to end up in the chat section there. So very good job. So to give you a quick little sense of what each of those ingredients bring to your beer, we'll just run through them. So grains provide your beer's color. So as we get to our darker beers, that color is coming from the grains used in the brewing process. It gives you those bread or doughy sorts of flavors that we talked about. It also provides the fermentable sugar that's then turned into alcohol. So that's a very important ingredient there. Hops provide bitterness. And we'll talk about that a little bit more with our next IPA. As you see in our hazy IPAs are known for having that full hop flavor, but very low bitterness. So we'll talk about that more. Hops provide those floral flavors and aromas, and also provide a little shelf stability for your beer. Yeast, we talked about right at the top.